keeping you informed and engaged. Now more than ever. This is Sekulow. We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110. And now your host, Logan Sekulow.
Welcome to Sekulow. Hopefully you're watching on YouTube, on Rumble, or maybe on the Salem News Channel, which we are now live on every day. If you're not a part of Salem News Channel, you should check it out. See what they're doing over there. Our friends at Salem. We've been on the network for about a year, but now we are live now, noon to 1 p.m. each and every weekday. So find us there on Salem News Channel. I did also want to take a minute to thank everyone who signed up and became an ACLJ champion over the last couple days. We've been promoting that a lot, and I encourage you right now, if you can, if you have the money right now, as we head into a very important week, and we can discuss that in a second, a very important week in terms of all of the confirmations that are going to start happening, the hearings that are going to start happening. We could use your support here at the ACLJ. And you can become an ACLJ champion. That is someone who gives on a recurring monthly basis, or if you can give a one-time donation, do it as well. Just go to aclj.org to do it today. But, Will, it's an important week coming up next week.
That's right. And as we look ahead, as we approach the inauguration of President Trump as the 47th president of the United States, the Senate, who has already been sworn in, were sworn in just at the beginning of this January, they are moving forward. They are going to have these hearings. While they can't vote on the nomination until President Trump has been sworn in, they can begin to hold their hearings and get everything ready so that on January 20th, they can begin to vote out of committee, and then to the full Senate, fulfilling their advice and consent role. We know in this week ahead, we have Pete Hegseth and Pam Bondi are going to start hearings. We also know that Tom Cotton, who is the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, is pushing for the CIA Director John Ratcliffe hearings to begin, as well as the next Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, for her hearings to begin. So we will be following it all closely. We will be reporting on it and bringing you information here and giving our analysis as we watch these hearings in this week ahead. But it is something that we are very focused on. If you go to aclj.org/petitions, there is a petition there where you can support these nominations. And when you sign that petition, our government affairs team makes sure that the senators see that. We say the ACLJ is bringing this many members have signed this petition, and they want you to confirm President Trump's nominees. And we will even break it down by state many times. If a certain senator from a certain state, we have a large portion of our audience that has signed that petition and be like, look how many of your constituents want you to move forward with President Trump's nominees so that we can begin this fight to restore the America that we fought for.
Right. It's going to be a big week, so make sure you stay tuned. Obviously, we are just a few days now from President Trump being inaugurated in Washington, D.C. It is a crazy time. I think it feels like it happened. You know, the election was 100 years ago. It also feels like it happened just yesterday, and it's hard to believe that we are already here midway through the month of January, heading towards Inauguration Day. It's pretty wild. Again, I want to encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ. Earlier this week, you heard from one of our new clients, or lawyers about one of our new clients who is on the front lines for the pro-life movement with someone who was protesting out in front of a pro-life, or sort of an abortion clinic, and they were told and arrested for speech. That, and you know what we've been doing in Massachusetts, and we're about to roll out in the next few weeks, that $500,000 counter ad campaign to promote pro-life resource centers in the Boston and Massachusetts area, because they have come under such attack by their own government. You can find out more. I encourage you just to go to aclj.org and look around. Incredible resources, incredible content that's posted every day. Obviously on our YouTube channel, on our Rumble channel, on Instagram, we're putting up new content every single day. So make sure you're staying engaged that way. And of course, important time, become an ACLJ champion, someone that gives on a monthly recurring basis. You can do it right now as little as $5 or set it as high as you'd like. We would love that. All right, we got a packed show coming up. Stay tuned again, aclj.org right now. Read the new articles, get engaged. It's a great place to interact.
Tulsi Gabbard's up for one of the most coveted cabinet positions in President-elect Trump's administration, Director of National Intelligence.
We can't allow our country to be destroyed by politicians who will put their own power ahead of the interests of the American people.
She would be privy to the nation's most closely guarded secrets, oversee 18 intelligence agencies, and be the president's main advisor on intelligence matters.
Democrats have a bullseye on Gabbard's back. Senator Tammy Duckworth accused her of being compromised, and Senator Elizabeth Warren called her, quote, a Russian asset.
I think it's really interesting that anybody that has a different political view now is being cast as a Russian asset. It's totally ridiculous. Tulsi Gabbard has served in our military.
I would hope that we have elected leaders who have heard the American people in this election, even if it didn't turn out the way that they wanted, and recognize that this is our opportunity to come together as a country and put the American people first.
Gabbard is somebody that we need to take a strong role in cleaning up the intelligence community. There's just been 50 years since the last time we had a proper house cleaning of the intelligence community. Since then, we have had the intelligence community involved in creating a censorship industrial complex, involved in creating a Russia collusion hoax around a sitting president. You know, we've had the intelligence community involved in a disinformation campaign around the Hunter Biden laptop, involved both the FBI and CIA.
There's going to be resistance to change from the swamp in Washington. I think that's kind of the point. The American people are saying, hey, stop looking at yourselves, stop focusing on your own power, your own position, your own bank accounts. How about we have leaders in Washington who are actually looking out for the American people? And on every issue across the board, that's really what it comes down to with what President Trump is trying to accomplish is we have to make sure that our government puts the interests of the American people first.
All right, welcome back to Sekulow. We are taking your phone calls to 1-800-684-3110. You know, the next war you get into here, and it's not just watching what the Biden administration is doing these final days there in office, the executive orders, the money they are throwing around, the potential to even, start other foreign wars because, again, you've got basically advisors running a presidency, and we see that in the mainstream media now. So it's a very dangerous time already, always is in a transition, that the Democrats will make it as difficult as possible, and the Biden team will make it as difficult as possible for the Trump team to get on the ground running. And the Democrats in the Senate want to do the same thing. They want to keep you from actually having control of the federal government, of the executive agencies, as long as possible, so that bureaucrats and holdovers are in charge, which are their friends who will not implement or with any speed the policies of the President of the United States. So it is key to get your cabinet confirmed, and as we've said, to get your deputies confirmed so those people are not being sent into a 10,000-person agency with not a single person they can truly trust and work with and know is on their same team as an American. That's how bad it is inside that bureaucracy. They have to assume everybody they're working with in the bureaucracy will try and undermine them or, is recording what they're saying and is going to try to take it out of context, basically see who they can remove before they've even gotten started. They did that with the first Trump team that went in there with the Russia story. We have no idea what they're going to come up with next. But right now, they've actually taken it to another level, which is not moving forward with some of the key hearings for nominees on the cabinet, like Director of National Intelligence for Tulsi Gabbard. She is a colleague of ours at the American Center for Law and Justice and on the Sekulow broadcast. She remains one today, and we are proud to have worked with her. Hopefully, we'll be able to work with her again in the future, while and assist whatever we can while she's DNI, but even further into her career. But she's got to get a hearing, and the Democrats' excuses for not having a hearing is absurd, especially when you have a country that has faced a new kind of terrorism is kind of come back. Islamic terrorism. Is it something we can quickly put, nip in the bud? The border issues. We know that the cartels are working with terrorist organizations. We know that there are bad actors. And we also know these intelligence agencies haven't been focusing on the right people. They've been focusing on American citizens, speech and organizing instead of the bad guys. And that's why we have these, unprepared security at large events.
Jordan, this is the problem. This is the fight that the U.S. Senate on the Democrat side has decided they want to pick at this dangerous, pivotal time in American history. Because they're already letting forward these nominations, these hearings to begin on Attorney General Pam Bondi would be Wednesday and Thursday of next week. Pete Hegseth is scheduled to have his hearing on Tuesday. Doug Burgum also on Tuesday. That'd be the Department of the Interior. Lee Zeldin is scheduled for Thursday for EPA. And Tom Cotton, who's the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, wants to hold both John Ratcliffe for the CIA director position and Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, their hearings early next week. His goal is to get these hearings started so that we can start getting to votes on January 20th when President Trump is sworn in. But the Democrats have picked their fight. They've drawn their line in the sand. They're going after Tulsi Gabbard. Mark Warner, who's the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, is saying that Tulsi Gabbard hasn't provided the enough material, the required vetting material for them to go forward with this. So the Democrats are forcing a delay in this hearing, forcing a delay for the position of Director of National Intelligence. And he's trying to make it seem as though because she hasn't provided these materials that she's somehow obstructing this process. But in reality, her FBI background check, the work for that was done and completed and sent to the FBI last week. That should also be expedited because she is someone who holds that high security clearance. Therefore, they already have much of this material. They don't have to start from zero and work their way up in this background check. But then also, they're saying she didn't provide a questionnaire. She provided the first questionnaire already, and they've given her a deadline of today to provide the second one, which she said she'll comply with. And then the final thing is the ethics statement that they want signed. Many of these nominees, because of the snow and the offices being closed in D.C., haven't been able to receive them yet because people haven't been in the office. It doesn't mean that they're not going to have it. So they're trying to play this game and pick this fight and make it be public that Tulsi Gabbard isn't playing along. She's not being helpful. She's obstructing this process. We have to delay her hearing. But in reality, she is. She's doing the things that need to be done to go before the Senate. And I think you should hear from Elizabeth Warren because she's been an outspoken critic on many of the nominees, but she gets pretty nasty, uses the old rhetoric on Tulsi Gabbard. And this was on CNN yesterday. Let's play bite one.
Why is Donald Trump doing this? And I think the answer is, let's have a big distraction and several more questions so we don't spend more time on Pete Hegseth, the nominee to be the head of the Department of Defense. So we don't spend more time on Tulsi Gabbard, who has been in the pocket of Putin and is not someone who should be trusted with our secrets, so that we don't spend more time on Robert Kennedy's views on vaccines. In other words, we have a job in front of us right now, and that is advise and consent on the nominees who are there to run our government.
Okay, first of all, Tulsi Gabbard already has top secret security level clearance. She might need another level 1 or 2 up, but there's not much higher that she can get, and she's maintained that for 2 decades, including this time period that they think she was, because of meeting with foreign leaders, somehow violating what would be then they would take your security clearance away if they thought you were doing something wrong. In fact, I just don't think we know the full story there because it's probably connected to a lot of different background things. And Tulsi's been involved in a lot of operations throughout Africa in the past couple of years that you don't talk about much. That's all you kind of hear about. And you see that in her bio. She talks about that. So again, some of this will have to be done, as we said, like behind closed doors. But the idea here that she is some unknown to the intelligence world, it's the exact opposite, Will. The FBI and everyone who's been through it says this is the person who has the easiest time to get their clearance through because they already have a very active high-level clearance from the U.S. military. With all the events that have occurred, has never once tried to revoke or question her security clearance. I mean, she's walking in with a higher-level security clearance as a non-politician, because she left Congress, than someone like Marco Rubio, who's coming in because he was elected as a U.S. Senator, that's what empowered him to get the information.
That's right.
Elected officials don't have to get clearances from the executive agencies. It's like the president. You don't have to clear them. But she's already got it from those agencies, and they're acting like they can't let her see this information. It's a sideshow to try to get so that people won't pay attention to other big issues. The truth is, if we can't get the Director of National Intelligence confirmed, and you can't get your DOD Secretary confirmed, and you can't do 4 of these at once because it's the same, all different committees at this level. This is what the Democrats' last attempt to do, is to really prevent the Trump administration from actually beginning. Because the president can do a lot by executive order, and he can do a lot with his team, but what he can't do is makes it very difficult, is to really implement big policy changes without the personnel in place to do it. And the bureaucrat holdovers, not only will they not do the work, they disagree with it. So you've got to get your people in place. You have to have a cabinet to govern the U.S. government right now. It's so huge that without a cabinet, I mean, it's a government that's run amok. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a call because people have been asking this question online as well. Sally's calling in Arizona on line 1. You're on the air.
Hi. Yes, I wanted to find out, actually, what is the best way for us out here to support Tulsi Gabbard in her nomination?
So I think there's 2 things to do. One is we have our petition at ACLJ.org. So as someone who, an organization that Tulsi's been a part of and on our team, I think it speaks a lot to even Republican U.S. senators who don't know Tulsi as well because maybe they are not always aligned with the MAGA movement. But they do know the work of the ACLJ, which is longer than that movement, have worked with us on lots of issues. So making sure you sign our petition so that we've got a lot of names there and thousands of people that know, hey, I'm an ACLJ supporter. Tulsi worked with the ACLJ. Want you to be reminded of that. So make sure when you are taking this vote or helping get this vote to the committee and then out to the floor of the U.S. Senate, that you know you're supporting someone that the ACLJ works with directly. And I think that's important. Now, when she gets the actual hearing date, we'll want you to call strategically U.S. senators and ultimately on the floor of the U.S. Senate, both of your U.S. senators to vote yes. But right now, share the information, get more people on our petition, Logan. That's what we got to do. We've got a specific petition for Tulsi, so they can sign it and then at no cost, share it with your friends and family online. It's easier to do that now on Facebook. Yeah, it's very easy. So do that, and let's get a lot of signatures there. She needs the support. Do it right now. ACLJ.org/sign. It'll take you directly there. SIGN sign. Sign for Tulsi and we need a supporter. We'll be right back with more.
Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, announcing a commitment to free speech online and a shift away from censoring all of us.
Even the U.S. government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it.
We'll move away from the independent, nonpartisan fact-checking they've had in place since after the 2016 election. Instead, he says, they will rely on community notes. In other words, users putting out context. This is similar to what X is doing.
This is a great opportunity for us to reset the balance in favor of free expression. As Mark says in that video, what we're doing today is we're getting back to our roots in free expression.
It's going to scale back some of the automatic filters that catch bad content. It says it will keep that for things like terrorism, child sexual exploitation, but for lower severity violations, it's going to ask users to report those before it evaluates them.
This is an important moment. You know, Musk has been out there taking these slings and arrows throughout this process as the only social media company that went full in on free speech. Zuckerberg would be a powerful ally. It would be a wonderful change. You know, Facebook funded a really creepy campaign years ago, trying to get young people to embrace what they call content moderation, what some of us call censorship. And it really failed in a spectacular fashion. It would be great if Zuckerberg could join Musk and create this powerful alliance for free speech.
The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms.
Welcome back to Sekulow. I also want to say a welcome to our new friends on Salem News Channel. If you're watching us on Salem News Channel, make sure you give us a call. Tell us. We'd love to hear from you because we have been on that network for the last year, but we are now live. So if you're watching this right now on Salem News Channel, unless it's a later on, way later rerun, we are live noon to 1 p.m. Eastern time. I wanted to say hello to all you. Great lineup of other hosts on there, so I hope you enjoy it. Take a look what they're doing at Salem News Channel. Let's go ahead and take some phone calls. Let's go to Ronnie, who's calling in South Carolina, who's listening on the radio. Ronnie, you're on the air.
Good afternoon. It's not morning anymore.
Go ahead.
So, question about Facebook. If you guys have any inkling here, I was thrown in Facebook jail so many times because of fact checkers, quote unquote fact checkers. And now my friends do not see my posts, and if they do, it's a couple of days old. I'm not anything I post on their marketplace, and nobody sees it. And I'm really curious if any of that's going to be affected once these budget changes come in.
Maybe so. One thing we can actually talk about and share is that they will be moving their content policy team from California to Texas. Now, we have seen the moves to Texas from a lot of these platforms. We've seen X start to do it. We've seen a lot of the others start to move their way to Texas, a lot of times to Austin, which can be a little more liberal leaning. But I assume what you'll have is a good group of people who will probably be leaving the platform because they don't want to move, and they simply don't want to move to Texas. And that could shift a lot of these policies.
Well, and Mark Zuckerberg did say in that announcement about the content-based review team going to Texas. He says, as we work to promote free expression, I think will help us build trust to do this work in places where there's less concern about the bias of our teams. So what you can also, I think, infer from that, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but that if they move it from the most liberal part of California, Northern California, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, then you move it to Texas, that they're not expecting, I assume, I'm not, once again, not putting words in their mouth, that not everyone is going to want to leave Silicon Valley in San Francisco area to move to Texas, wherever that may be in Texas. And by saying there should be less concern about bias of our teams, that they're looking for talent that are less biased, that maybe come from those areas of the country.
Maybe they're trying to find people that will go into the office again, too.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's probably also a part of it as well. But I think this entire thing from the leadership having board members that we know are of like mind. That is a huge deal. I can't reiterate that enough.
Yeah, on a platform that large, in a company as large as Meta, the board controls a lot. They can do a lot. They can get a lot done. And you have someone who is as outspoken as Dana White, and you said another Republican lobbyist that's getting involved and now on the board as well. Those are big moves. And look, I know it's easy to just go, oh, don't trust them, and I'm not saying you should. But I think that this is an opportunity, maybe an opportunity to get back a bit where we came from. Let's go ahead and take another call. Let's go to Charles, who's calling in Georgia on line 2. You're on the air.
Hello. I just wanted to express my opinion that I think the only thing that is really going to ensure that Facebook and Google and big corporations like that have gotten control over information, which they have in the past used it to censorship, collusion with FBI, all kinds of things to limit free speech for political purposes. They've demonstrated that they've done that. They're capable of it. And I think that's what we're seeing now is just a ploy. All it is to, if you can't beat them, join them. And then if the Democrats get back in control again and all that wokeism comes back and all that stuff, Zuckerberg will be a chameleon and join right up with them again. And
well, Charles, I would say I want to jump in here because, I mean, I hear your points.
Sure.
And that's why I keep pointing back to the board members, because it's a publicly traded company. The board members have a lot of power by saying, hey, these moves you're making, company, aren't in the best interest of the shareholders. Because what's the point of doing things in interest of the shareholders? To raise the stock price. At the end of the day, that's how the corporate America, these big corporations, The board of directors gets to look it down and have oversight and say, what you're doing is going to decrease the value of this company to the people that own stock of it. And if they're going to revert back and try to push things that, one, are draining resources, really expensive, and don't produce any profit, and lose actual users of the platform, people like Dana White, who has built very large companies based off the principles that we hold dear, and as well as
punching people in the face.
Another person that's conservative as well. I think they will have a lot of power to try to keep that in check. Yes, obviously, you can't control a publicly traded company from the outside, but you can with your pocketbook, with your users. And I do think that that we are a big part of the reason this is a shift, not the administration. That we, the American people that are conservatives and believe in American conservative values, are a big part of the reason they are making this change.
Yeah, and I think you have someone like Mark Zuckerberg. Obviously, you have Dana White coming in. He's a big Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy, I think. Zuckerberg, he's involved in MMA. He's challenged Elon Musk to a fight. We've had all that happen. Remember, that happened just a few years ago, how quickly things change. You also have Tim Cook yesterday pledging $1 million personally, not the Apple, usual, an additional $1 million of his own money to the Trump inauguration events committee. And that is a little bit traditional, but if you read the comments that came out of Tim Cook, and we know that Tim Cook, the head of Apple, by the way, he's been down at Mar-a-Lago as well, Auburn grad. He's been down at Mar-a-Lago with Elon, with people like Zuckerberg. So yes, are they kissing up to what's happening there? Maybe so.
I mean,
but
yes, definitely they are.
But maybe that is because they also see how the American people are reacting, and maybe you'll have companies that actually respond. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that it's at least a good spot. So let's go ahead and take should we play from another clip from Zuckerberg?
Just a little bit longer, so we'll hold that for the next half hour.
Yeah, hey, if you're watching online, you'll get the full hour. If you're listening on the radio, some of you don't. Make sure you watch us live, aclj.org, YouTube, Rumble, yes, on Facebook. We are there. We're also on X. Find us, just search for ACLJ or Sekulow. We're broadcasting live now. You can also sign our petition to help us continue our battle against online censorship and social media censorship. Sign our petition at aclj.org/sign. This is a huge win as they're getting rid of fact checkers, something that has been a bit of a bane of our existence for the last 7-8 years. So excited to hopefully have some positive movement in that. Again, you can go to aclj.org. We'll be taking your calls coming up in the next segments as well at 1-800-684-3110. Let's quickly go to Charlotte, who's calling in Georgia on line 4. Charlotte, you're on the air.
Yes, Kevin and I are just saying hi and thank you guys for the wonderful work that you're doing. And we are praying for you every day. You're in the front lines for us there, even on the phones. So we just, Kevin and I are just in prayer for the ACLJ and Jay and the entire crew.
Thank you.
Your safety, as well as the wonderful front lines you've been for Trump and the entire conservative voice of which we are a part.
Charlotte, I appreciate you calling. I appreciate your prayers. I don't mean to cut you off at all. We're just head to a break, but I want to thank everyone who does that, who not only supports the work of the ACLJ, whether it's by signing petitions or donating financially, but just pray for us. Continue to keep us in your prayers. Pray for, like she said, pray for our safety, for us, for our families, for our team, whether that's here in the office or when we're traveling around the world. I was just at the European Center for Law and Justice, our European office. I was just there 2 weeks ago, or less than 2 weeks ago. There's so much amazing work happening. There's so many people. You hear our names, sure. There are hundreds of people working full-time here at the ACLJ, and we can't do that without you. Let's go to aclj.org, but phone lines are open. 1-800-684-3110, second half hour, coming right up in less than a minute.
Some people think champions are bored, that it's a title that requires something only a handful can ever possess.
There are times in our lives that we are called, every one of us, to step up and serve a cause greater than ourselves.
Even when the loudest voices in the room say it's wrong, that it can't be done. It can be a difficult stand, but it's one any of us can make, including you.
You can be the change. You can make that difference.
You can be a champion. We cannot do what we do without you.
By becoming a monthly donor, you can become a champion of life.
A champion of liberty, a champion of freedom.
Please join us. Become an ACLJ champion today.
keeping you informed and engaged. Now more than ever. This is Sekulow. We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110. And now your host, Logan Sekulow.
Welcome to Sekulow. Hopefully you're watching on YouTube, on Rumble, or maybe on the Salem News Channel, which we are now live on every day. If you're not a part of Salem News Channel, you should check it out. See what they're doing over there. Our friends at Salem. We've been on the network for about a year, but now we are live now, noon to 1 p.m. each and every weekday. So find us there on Salem News Channel. I did also want to take a minute to thank everyone who signed up and became an ACLJ champion over the last couple days. We've been promoting that a lot, and I encourage you right now, if you can, if you have the money right now, as we head into a very important week, and we can discuss that in a second, a very important week in terms of all of the confirmations that are going to start happening, the hearings that are going to start happening. We could use your support here at the ACLJ. And you can become an ACLJ champion. That is someone who gives on a recurring monthly basis, or if you can give a one-time donation, do it as well. Just go to aclj.org to do it today. But, Will, it's an important week coming up next week.
That's right. And as we look ahead, as we approach the inauguration of President Trump as the 47th president of the United States, the Senate, who has already been sworn in, were sworn in just at the beginning of this January, they are moving forward. They are going to have these hearings. While they can't vote on the nomination until President Trump has been sworn in, they can begin to hold their hearings and get everything ready so that on January 20th, they can begin to vote out of committee and then to the full Senate, fulfilling their advice and consent role. We know in this week ahead, we have Pete Hegseth and Pam Bondi are going to start hearings. We also know that Tom Cotton, who is the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, is pushing for the CIA Director John Ratcliffe hearings to begin, as well as the next Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, for her hearings to begin. So we will be following it all closely. We will be reporting on it and bringing you information here and giving our analysis as we watch these hearings in this week ahead. But it is something that we are very focused on. If you go to aclj.org/petitions, there is a petition there where you can support these nominations. And when you sign that petition, our government affairs team makes sure that the senators see that. We say the ACLJ is bringing this many members have signed this petition, and they want you to confirm President Trump's nominees. And we will even break it down by state many times. If a certain senator from a certain state, we have a large portion of our audience that has signed that petition and be like, look how many of your constituents want you to move forward with President Trump's nominees so that we can begin this fight to restore the America that we fought for.
Right. It's going to be a big week, so make sure you stay tuned. Obviously, we are just a few days now from President Trump being inaugurated in Washington, D.C. It is a crazy time. I think it feels like it happened. You know, the election was 100 years ago. It also feels like it happened just yesterday, and it's hard to believe that we are already here midway through the month of January, heading towards Inauguration Day. It's pretty wild. Again, I want to encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ. Earlier this week, you heard from one of our new clients, or lawyers about one of our new clients who is on the front lines for the pro-life movement with someone who was protesting out in front of a pro-life, or sort of an abortion clinic, and they were told and arrested for speech. That, and you know what we've been doing in Massachusetts, we're about to roll out in the next few weeks, that $500,000 counter ad campaign to promote pro-life resource centers in the Boston and Massachusetts area, because they have come under such attack by their own government. You can find out more. I encourage you just to go to aclj.org and look around. Incredible resources, incredible content that's posted every day. Obviously on our YouTube channel, on our Rumble channel, on Instagram, we're putting up new content every single day. So make sure you're staying engaged that way. And of course, important time, become an ACLJ champion, someone that gives on a monthly recurring basis. You can do it right now as little as $5 or set it as high as you'd like. We would love that. All right, we got a packed show coming up. Stay tuned again, aclj.org right now. Read the new articles, get engaged. It's a great place to interact. was April 29th, 2024, and I was in deep prayer late at night and honestly, grieving. Personally, spiritually, reaching out for something to hold on to. God said he wanted me to announce a special that will showcase hope in Jesus and what can feel like extreme darkness in our country and the world. In this special, we will shine a light on true stories, show regular human beings that follow God's calling even when it's not easy.
I believe that people were born pro-life. The devil's lies begin to infiltrate, and we begin to believe those lies.
The battle that we're facing in this life-affirming movement really is a battle against darkness. It's a battle against the enemy who's trying to devalue God's very creation.
All of us, including distance, sprinters, throwers, we all came together. This girl asked us, she was like, hey, you want to pray?
We looked up and then we saw our coach. He was looking really angry at us.
He yelled at us. He wouldn't let us pray.
You cannot stand for God and God not stand for you. And the next day I went through with it and was just praying under my breath that God would honor the stand and it would truly be about him and not about me.
These are just a few true stories of regular people stepping up and standing up for God.
It's the most beautiful thing to see in the midst of such tragedy and death and destruction, to see how our fellow Americans stand up and step up for each other.
Anyone that comes to a Striper show, they're going to leave a new person. They're going to view life, music, and the message of the gospel in a different way.
Share this special with your friends and your family, because we could all use a little hope. Welcome back to Sekulow. We are going to take your calls about this and other topics as well. If you have a question or comment of anything related to the news right now, give us a call, 1-800-684-3110. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to ask you to hit that thumbs up and also put in a comment. If you don't know what to comment, tell me where you're watching from. I always like to see that. We need to make sure more people get this in their feeds because this is a really interesting story, and I think we need to play, Will, some clips from Mark Zuckerberg himself, and I will also give you some headlines, some sort of top lines that we got from our friends at Meta to share, which I thought was pretty interesting. Again, big moves. I believe you can credit Elon Musk for a lot of this. You can credit the success they've had on X, and maybe you could also credit Threads, not exactly blowing the doors down when they had the X alternative. And it's an interesting time, but I think we should play a clip. I mean, you could see it's not just a quick press release. Hey, we're doing this. Mark Zuckerberg sort of pleads with the American people, pleads with the world to say, hey, we messed up. We went way too far, and we're going to do what we can to redeem ourselves. Should we go ahead and play a bite?
Yeah, let's go ahead and play bite 2. This is from a video released this morning from Mark Zuckerberg.
The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US.
So let me read that to you. The fact checkers have become too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the U.S. We can say without a doubt, because we had this happen to us, and we have a lawyer on staff whose main job is to make sure we have a voice advocating for ourselves on these social media platforms, because, Will, there were times where we would have a case and we were making our argument in the case, and Facebook or the Facebook fact checkers, the independent fact checkers, would come in and say, no, what you're spreading is lies.
And there's one very specific instance that I remember was when it was with a bill that was going in the Maryland State House. It was going forward. It had that language about perinatal abortion, which we were pointing out that term includes the period after birth as well. In that hearing, the lawyers for the Democrats conceded that that's actually what that means. There could be some unintended consequences here. It wasn't even the conservative pro-life faction that was saying this. It was the lawyers for the Democrats. And we were pointing this out. Our lawyers were presenting in this hearing, testifying before a legislative body. We had a post about that very issue. And the liberal fact checkers that Facebook was using rated it as false. Not only does that make the post not get shown up, but it hurts your entire brand and category of having your posts and information seen. We fought it. We were able to successfully overturn it by showing documentation of what we testified, what the Democrat lawyers in that state house testified, and showed them the record and got it overturned with no long-term damage to the organization's social media accounts. However, that is just one caveat, one small thing, because we had the proof, the wherewithal to fight it, and even some connections at Facebook to know the right channels to go to.
Right.
Most people did not even have the time to continue to push to overturn, or even know that they could push to overturn these fact checkers. And even there, Mark Zuckerberg points out that the fact checkers have been too politically biased. That goes to what we've been saying. It goes to our own experience. I know it goes to your experience out there that's watching, that you saw things that were demoted, shadow banned, or disappeared or fact checked because it wasn't even necessarily Facebook themselves, but this team of fact checkers that they had were all left of center and all targeting conservative voices.
Yeah, and we saw that over and over again. Let's go take a call. Let's go to Lynn in Florida, who's listening on the radio. Lynn, you're on the air.
Yes. Meta has not suddenly decided to be a friend of MAGA. They're just doing this to, I guess, not suffer the consequences. They didn't decide overnight to not be evil. If you believe this, you lack wisdom, you lack knowledge, and you lack understanding.
Well, Lynn, I appreciate you calling in, and I understand after many years of dealing with that. I'm a little more hopeful. I'm a little more hopeful that maybe they see the writing on the wall, and maybe this was something that was not directly. I mean, I'm sure, look, they saw the change in the feelings of the American people. Mark Zuckerberg says it in that video. Would this have happened if Kamala Harris had won? Maybe so, because you're trying to keep your business going. You're trying to keep your audience happy. And of course, we've seen so much change in social media over the last few years that people have left platforms, they've joined platforms. The liberal groups all were on Twitter, then they all left X, and it goes back and forth and back and forth. And maybe you could have sort of a return to normalcy. You could say that even Instagram was maybe one of the few that felt a little less politically driven. And I heard an interview actually with one of the heads of Instagram who said, like, one of the reasons that you can't link out is so it did not become a news platform.
Right.
And I think that's maybe what we're seeing, which is get back to why you want to be on Facebook, why you want to be on Instagram. Now, Facebook, they're saying, no, we are actually going to amp up political discussion, if you will. Right. We're going to amp up some of those more controversial topics that we at one point deemed to be for inclusion and now realized that the American people are not one-sided on them.
Well, and to Lynn's point, she is, I would say, justifiably skeptical.
Absolutely.
As probably most people watching, including ourselves, are you want to see the proof once it gets there. But I would also say, when you're seeing like McDonald's announcing just yesterday they're ending some of their DEI practices. You've seen the University of Michigan saying that they're rolling back some of those DEI things. A lot of corporations are saying, we've kind of heard. And I would say some of these corporations are not as ideologically driven by politics as we give them credit for. I think, and I would argue, and probably rightly so to some degree, that these corporations, especially the giant ones, are guided by profit. And when they think that the world, and maybe because of what legacy media is telling them the world wants, they're like, how are we going to make more money? We're going to go do all these DEI things. Yes, is it a lot of money for us? They spend money on these programs that honestly don't make them a dollar, but they think that makes them more palatable or more attractive for the consumer.
Or for the advertiser.
Exactly.
And we saw that happen at a company like Disney, where it went so far where an audience finally started revolting. And you had a group of people inside Disney say, we cannot keep politicizing every piece of content we put out. And when you see it, you can feel it, because it was never done with gentle hands. It was always done with something that just felt so out of place, or something that felt so forced that the creatives involved didn't feel like they even had anything to do with it. It felt like they were just pushed to do it. I think that's what we've seen across the board. Maybe there are some changes. Look, again, I think you could be skeptical. I'm skeptical on Facebook because why? I don't know. Let's say 6 or 7 years ago, we had somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 people watching our show each and every day on Facebook. As we're broadcasting right now, we got thousands on YouTube, thousands on Rumble. How many do we have right now as we talk about this content on Facebook? 240. Okay, so you can't tell me that hasn't changed. We have 4 million plus people on this page. And 240 are what's watching. So I want to make a challenge to our friends at Facebook and say, how about you lift some of those filters? How about you start notifying people once again that this show is broadcasting live? How about you start doing what you used to do, which was spread the word and let us have a actual forum for discussion? So we'll see if we get there. Phone lines again are open at 1-800-684-3110. We've been fighting this for years, and we have successfully won over and over again against social media platforms that have tried to censor us. We have won every single time, and now we've seen Facebook say, we give up, we're changing things. Mark Zuckerberg clearly trying to make some inroads with Trump putting in someone like Dana White, again, the head of the UFC, who you've seen speak at the Republican National Convention. You've seen speak over the years. You've seen him welcome President Trump to UFC events to thunderous applause. Maybe, again, he was doing that when it was not popular to be doing it. And now he's on the board of directors of Meta. That is a big deal and a huge win for conservatives. I mean, this is not a non-controversial figure. This is maybe one of the more controversial media figures just due to the business that he's in. UFC, Power Slap, now involved in the WWE because of TKO. This is someone involved in violent sport, but is a sound conservative.
And Logan, I think to that point as well, that's even bigger to me than just the announcement of going to the getting rid of the fact checkers and going to the community notes, because that also shows they are putting people in leadership. There's a former Republican lobbyist as well as Dana White. Those are two individuals that will help shape policy. And so that to me is the bigger news in this, that they are trying to change and seek a new path forward, as opposed to just saying, okay, here's some community notes, everyone should be happy now. I think that is a signal of big change at Meta.
Yeah, but I've heard there's some even bigger announcements coming. Stay tuned. We got more coming up. We're going to take your calls in the next segment. 1-800-684-3110.
This new year starting in tragedy. At least 15 dead and dozens injured after police say a man intentionally plowed his car into a crowd in the busy French Quarter of New Orleans on Bourbon Street.
Biden's weak national security apparatus led to 2 deadly terrorist attacks on New Year's Day.
We knew with the Biden administration, if you just gave it time, full term now, that you would see these returns happen.
Biden's FBI has been wrong-headedly focused on prosecuting Trump and placing spies in supposed radical traditionalist Christian churches.
We have to get the FBI and all of our other intel agencies thinking a different way, which is that it's not homegrown extremist white groups that are the number one threat. I do not want to continue to see a rise of politically connected Islamic terror again in the United States of America, which means we have got to get the president's team confirmed.
It is vitally important that the Senate quickly confirm President Trump's national security team, including our very own colleague, Tulsi Gabbard, as DNI. We're in court battling FOIA lawsuits against the DOD, DOJ, FBI, and NSA over misplaced priorities that endanger America. Our Government Affairs Office is mobilizing on Capitol Hill, but we must act quickly. Biden's deep state will be running all these agencies long after President Trump takes office, unless we get his national security team confirmed quickly. Take urgent action with us and join our demand letter to the Senate to quickly confirm Trump's national security team. The safety and security of our constitutional republic depend on it.
Welcome back to Sekulow. I know we've got a lot of listeners, viewers in Southern California, as we said. We know that it's a key support base for us, the American Center for Law and Justice, one of our largest areas of supporters. And if you're being impacted by it, sure, we want to hear from you on the broadcast, too, 1-800-684-3110. I don't think Rick is trying to politicize it, but people are talking about the causes, and they're all known. You could go through that whole list of causes. They needed more water put away. People voted for it, means they would pay for it, and it didn't happen. People know that clearing the brush is how they spread so quickly, and they won't clear the brush because of other environmental reasons. And you got to make choices if you're going to live in certain terrains for humans first. I mean, this is, again, when you get to policies that try to disregard, we have to worry about the frog more than the human, then the policies end up with these kind of disasters. And it's not a place where you can look and say, well, at least people in these situations, middle-class people, especially who can get hit the hardest, they've got insurance. A lot of them don't when it comes to fire. That was revoked years ago, and they likely could not afford the add-on that you'd have to pay extra to get that insurance. So the extremely wealthy, they can rebuild. And those who are in some kind of subsidized housing, that can be rebuilt. But people right in the middle, they have to rethink, are there going to be the jobs there? Is this going to be a place that is livable? And it's crazy to say that about one of the better climates, usually 90% of the year in the United States of America. So if there's any of you that want to update us on anything that's happening, 1-800-684-3110. I do want to go back to the confirmation issue, though, using Tulsi Gabbard as an example, because Senator Fetterman has talked about how he's been open to meet with all these nominees, Will, and yet, the criticism or the concerns people have, he's not really picking up on it in these meetings.
That's right.
The politicizing so many of these nominees because Donald Trump chose them.
And 2 years ago, when there was a midterm election, who would have ever thought that we would be this point in now 2025 saying one of the voices of reason in the Democrat Party is Senator John Fetterman from Pennsylvania. But we've seen it over and over again, whether it be through the election. He was asked about the Laken Riley Act yesterday, where that was an act if a criminal alien is here and has been picked up for petty theft or some other lower level crime, then they're detained and not released back out. And a lot of the Democrats are saying they're not going to support it in the Senate. John Fetterman said, if we can't get 7 Democrats to vote for this in the Senate to get past the 60 vote threshold, then they don't understand why we lost the election. I mean, that's the type of things that John Fetterman, as a Democrat in the Senate, is saying. But back to your point, this bite is from yesterday on Fox News. He was asked about the Tulsi Gabbard specifically as one of the nominees. Let's take a listen.
Is this Tulsi Gabbard one of the nominees that you could vote for?
Well, I met with her. In fact, I think I've met with virtually all of them. And the ones that I haven't, they're on my schedule, RFK and Governor Noem. So I'm happy to meet with all of them. And that's also part of this. I don't know why that was controversial. I mean, I got a lot of blowback just, even to meet with them. And to me, I see that as just doing my job. And I'm going to have a conversation with anyone that would like to have a conversation with me. And if somebody believed everything that's been written or said about me was true, I mean, you can't possibly know me, or I think I could know her either, just based on someone read. But I want to sit down and have a conversation, and I'm really glad that I've done that. And some of these nominees I'm going to vote for already. In fact, whether it's our colleague Rubio, our Representative Stefanik, or even Sean Duffy, I expect to vote for him as well too.
So there you go. It's very interesting, Logan, because he's not afraid of the normal politics of the Democrat Party. The political blowback. What he's saying, first off, I mean, the fact that he's been announcing that because they've had those meetings, is that Democrats, because in those meetings it can humanize people one-on-one. And you could talk about your differences, but you also could talk about how you agree more than different. And it's in those situations. That's the party is why they say, don't even take the meeting. Yeah. And I think where he's going is, well, listen, a president got elected. This is who he chose. They're willing to meet with me. If we could have the discussion on the issues I care about, if we could come to a middle ground, that's as much as I can hope for and want in someone who's obviously going to be nominated, a party very different than mine. And I'm not going to be afraid
to meet with him. But the left and leadership, they don't want you to even meet because it's a lot easier to then be group think and be nasty in those committees if you've never sat across that person and had to actually have a discussion.
Well, but he's sitting there on a Fox News set with Katie Britt. Yeah. You know, like this is someone who's taking, talk about a moment where we've kind of had a flip, which has happened now multiple times. And I've said this. We've seen people grow and change over the last few years. They're taking also taking the temperature of their own state in their own areas. We saw what happened in Pennsylvania. So he's not just going to step by. I think this is a big moment. But you're right. When he already is mentioning names, sure, he doesn't say Tulsi, I'm 100% going to confirm. But when he says Rubio, for sure. Stefanik, for sure. Yeah. Sean Duffy, for sure. Pretty much. I mean, when you're saying that already, you're making these statements. That's pretty wild.
Well, and John Fetterman has said he's not rooting for Trump to fail, which seems like, yeah, right. That should be the right thought process as an elected official. But that's not what you see out of the Democrat Party this year. Right. You shouldn't want your president to fail, even if you don't believe in their policies, because you don't want the failure of America.
Right.
But he said that gets him in trouble. And you mentioned he's on set with Katie Britt, the Republican senator from Alabama, one of the most conservative states in the country. They're actually partnering together on the Senate version of the Lake and Riley Act. So that's going to be bipartisan from him. But even he is saying he doesn't know if he can get his colleagues in his party to vote for something that is so simple of keeping people that commit crimes in detention if they're here illegally until that's adjudicated. He doesn't think he can get people in his own party to get there. So I think he's the anomaly. I think it could be good, especially to get him voting for some of these nominees when you do have some of the hawks in the party. Now, we don't know how he's going to vote for Tulsi yet. He didn't directly say it like he did Sean Duffy or Rubio, but he seems more open to it. But you need people like him, especially if there's some more hawkish Republicans that are afraid of maybe her taking away some of the governmental powers of security of intelligence gathering. But I think it's going to be important to have voices like that are honest brokers to the American people and say, you know what? President won. They swept Congress. You got to give him his picks at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the key. And Republicans really, there might be those couple like you mentioned who don't always agree with President Trump. But this is, again, their job is to look at the person and say, does this person, just have the qualification? That's it. It's not the policies. Because they're working for a president who will instruct them on the policies and make the big decisions. These are the people he's chose to carry out his policies. And when you win big and your party's not just in charge of the White House, but the House and the Senate, it shouldn't be too difficult to get your nominees through. And that doesn't mean you got to fight and push back some. But we want to make sure that, again, that these aren't put on hold where it gets hold on indefinitely. And then these important agencies don't have directors. And then we have another attack and we still don't have a director that oversees all the intelligence agencies except one who's a holdover from the bureaucracy. Let's get these appointments in. Let's get people like Tulsi Gabbard, make sure that they've got their committee hearings scheduled so we can move to their votes of the full Senate. Sign the petition to help Tulsi and to make sure we get her committee hearing scheduled at aclj.org. Share it with your friends and family as well. Let's build some grassroots pressure with one of our ACLJ colleagues. Be historic for the ACLJ.